Hey everyone, this is Acorn, not Peach, first off. This is what I look like, obviously, duh. And this is going to be a very, very different video. If you subbed for Space Station 14, which is, most of you, then don't worry. Space Station's not going anywhere. This is a video that I've wanted to make for a while. First off, trigger warning for child abuse and suicide. Obviously, as the title says. I had this trigger for myself for a good while, and it took a long time to get to the point where I'm even willing to explore my memories to make this video. This video will be here if slash when you are ready. This is, this is the title. This is my story, I guess. To start, I want to talk about the reason I'm making this video. It comes from a feeling of missing something? How do I put this in a way that makes the most sense? I want to tell myself something that would have been amazing to hear when I was younger. And that I want to tell myself, I want to tell a younger version of myself, which which is now you watching this maybe, because some of you may be a younger version of myself. It gets better. If you're dealing with all the struggles I dealt with, the trauma, the hopelessness, know that as someone who was dealing with, fuck it, this video is getting age restricted no matter what, suicidal thoughts, worthlessness, trapped, confused, it gets better. I know you likely think that this is your life and the only way out is to, leave every part of it behind. I understand that feeling. I know that feeling. You're not wrong for feeling that way. You're not alone in feeling that way. It it gets better. Reach out. Never ever stop reaching out. Anyone, everyone. I am here because when I reached out, I got a handed response. Now, before we begin the full story, if I look weird on camera, it's because I'm using NVIDIA's AI effects to blur the background and also to maintain eye contact with the camera. Because I have a script in front of me, so if I look a little bit weird, that's why. Now let's start with the actual story, I guess. Keep in mind that my mind has clouded memories of my childhood as a defense mechanism, so this will likely be a bit of a confusing mess. I was diagnosed from birth, well, not from birth, but close to birth, from with a Asperger syndrome. Yeah, Asperger syndrome, which got changed to autism spectrum disorder. For the unaware, people with Asperger's syndrome and now autism spectrum disorder don't read social cues. We don't understand social situations very well. We don't comprehend social cues, and we're slow when it comes to learning. It's a learning disability for a reason. And the fact that it got changed to autism spectrum disorder a little later becomes an important detail, so I'll put that in the bin of things to remember for now. My parents, my mother and my father, are two parents who definitely should not have had a child together. Both hated each other, and my father was emotionally absent on account of him also having autism spectrum disorder. And my mother was, we never found out what the hell was wrong with her, but there was something mentally wrong with her, and it was severe. My first memory that I can still picture was at school, and I stayed behind to play tag with the other kids instead of walking home. For reference, my house is a 1 minute walk from elementary school. She came over, and with the force that which she pulled me home was so extreme that I'm pretty sure that's where these scars come from. I hope NVIDIA's AI effects isn't ruining this, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where these came from. From the sheer force of her grabbing my arm. That is the earliest memory of the abuse that I have still. I should have been in the special education areas, but my mother, in her infinite wisdom, could not accept that I was different and was always going to be different. So I was forced into the normal classes. It went as well as expected. I was bullied frequently, and the memories of this bullying aren't even that prevalent in my mind because the biggest bully in my life was, well, my mother. I won't go over all of the details from everything she did because this isn't a story of dark, it's a story of light. And during these classes, I did pretty terribly for maybe obvious reasons. Pretty much the cycle was tests coming up, threats of violence if I fucked it up, proceeding to getting beaten if I did fuck it up. Again, avoiding these specifics to keep this not as dark as it could be. You're probably wondering why I didn't call for help. Teachers, social services, etc. I did. Many times. Frankly, you could write a whole doctoral thesis on why the system designed to protect kids from child abuse is completely fucking worthless, especially when dealing with special kids or special needs kids like myself. Social services came to my home multiple times, each leaving with the same justification for their laziness. He's autistic, no wonder he's saying stupid things. The conclusion of, let's call this Act 1, why not, ends with me having my first suicidal thought at the age of 10. Yeah. It's sparked an anger inside of me. And this became my main coping mechanism to deal with all of the abuse that I suffered, was to just get really angry and break something. Trees, random things around me, school objects sometimes. Violence just became an outpouring. I never really did violence against anyone, or any animal, but against inanimate objects that did nothing wrong, oh yeah. Act 2 time. High school. An inciting incident happened that changed how this act would play out. Ninth grade. Fuck up immediately. And forget to do homework, which, again, neurodivergent here. Homework does not go well for us. Again, an entire video on the Canadian education system and how it completely sucks for neurodivergence, but out of scope, requires research, and I fucking am not doing research again. Not right now, at least. Anyway, call for the school about how I ain't done my homework, and she proceeds to barge to my room and grab me. Now, something changes. This is not the first time this song and dance plays out, but this time, I shove her back. Over the years, she'd gotten lazier, older, weaker, me stronger, angrier, and bigger. She falls, gets up, yells 20 threats about how I will pay for this, said this isn't just going to go away, and then never physically abuses me again. Don't get me wrong, she didn't stop abusing me. She just stopped physically abusing me. Screaming, yelling were still frequent as hell, and you're wrong if you don't think that's very traumatic. High school continued, and then, well, a certain issue arose. A certain global phenomenon that kept everyone inside. I don't think I have to tell you about what that global phenomenon was, do I? Anyways, being forced inside with online schooling was a double edged sword. On one hand, stuck with her. On the other, my grades improved now that I was in an environment of doing things when I wanted to. Pretty much all my classes were decided with, when do you want to do this, since we were all at home. Plus, the work didn't have tests, so my neurodivergent ass, which tests also are bad for neurodivergence and the school system as a whole, but again, a whole other video, I got good enough grades to get accepted into university, something I was told I wanted all my life. I chose political science out of a foolish, half assed interest of making the world a better place. Frankly, I could do an entire video again about how fucking miserable poli sci was, but this is about my trauma. So, the first year of uni came and went. I ended my first year with bad marks and a worse mental state based on how stressed I was. And because of her insistence and refusal to help, including finding my old diagnosis, which, as it turned out, she claimed she lost it, but she knew where it was the entire time. And her refusal to accept that I was different led to me not getting the teaching aids that I needed. And that summer, after my first year, she was diagnosed with very late stage lung cancer and given a month to live. This will very likely sicken some of you, but in order for this story to help anyone, for someone to relate to it, for it to be my story, I must be completely and totally honest. The news that she would soon die was great news to me. The freedom I was looking for. I had considered other methods of freedom, running away, ending my own life, which, again, it gets better. But this was tangible. Then a few days later, she was okay to return home, and it was possible she could live, and that it might have been breast cancer, and if they killed the breast cancer, her lung cancer would go away or something. I barely paid attention. The only thought that was prevalent in my head was, fuck, she might live. I considered some terrible things, but due to her own lack of self care, she died in about 2 weeks. I'm not 100% sure, as the time around her death is very, very hazy in my memory. The lead up is quite memorable, though. She cut her own oxygen line at home multiple times in her insanity because she was loaded up with some weird morphine knockoff. Morph Morphata? I don't know. I didn't pay attention. She screamed for help all night, and then when you go to could like talk to her gibberish, she went back to the hospital, and a few short days later, my dad told me the doctors said she had one last day to live at most. I was going to go see her. I had this like sickening revenge idea in my head out of a movie of telling her how I was gonna keep living and how terrible of a person she was for everything she did to me, but she said she didn't want me there. No idea why. One more day passed, she was gone. My dad came back home at I think it was 1 a.m. and told me she was gone. This concludes Act 2. Act 3 is everything from then to now. Her death was 1 week from the start of the next semester, and I felt empty, drained. I autopiloted that entire week. There was no funeral. We weren't contacted by any of her family members after her death, and neither me or my dad, who is also a survivor of her abuse. And Dad, I know you're watching this. If you want to make a video on my channel detailing your experiences with spousal abuse and domestic abuse as a man, you know how to find me. We kind of live together after all. But yeah, we donated her eyes to some guy who needed it, and I got a medal for that. I'd show it, but I have no idea where it went to. But no funeral, nothing. I returned to university. Day one, I had two classes. I sat through the first one before leaving, headed towards the second one, when I realized I didn't remember a single damn thing that was said. Notes, remembrance, nothing. I sat through about a half hour of the next lecture before I got up, went to leave, and the professor, who was an asshole to me the first class I had with him, asked me where I was going and that whatever it was, it could not be more important to my education. I told him that my mother just died and he could go fuck himself. Which was not the most mature thing to say, but being mostly unrecognizable, unnamed, or the shame or guilt that that asshole felt, I didn't get reported from that statement, and that outburst didn't have any lasting consequences. While he definitely deserved it, I realized I wasn't in a mental state, and I went home. I reduced my course load while trying to get some mental help. This didn't fucking happen because the system chewed me out and spat me out 3 times without any help with a useless diagnosis 3 times. Because, yeah. Turns out in order to get the special stuff I need as the teaching aids, someone with a learning disability requires re-diagnosis since going out for that remembrance bin, Asperger's doesn't exist suddenly and the system just didn't give me one. Every doctor I saw refused to re-diagnose me with that because, oh, you're just mentally traumatized. No, dude. I've had autism my whole life. And I ended that year with worse marks than before, somehow. One more semester, and I realized I couldn't continue. My marks were so terrible that I wasn't going to get into a third year, and I decided I needed some time off uni to find myself and figure out what the hell I am and to heal. I'd been wound up my whole life from either university or the abuse, so I started this this channel, and the rest is history. History that is still being written. This channel was the first decision I've ever made for myself. And the response from all of you has been, oh god, I'm tearing up. I promised myself I wouldn't do this. It's been amazing. Like, I can't thank you enough, frankly. Like, every comment, every person recognizing me in game, it's amazing. It's definitely not been the easiest. I mean, Premiere is a pain in the ass to work with at the best of times, and downright doesn't work at the worst, but this has been the best decision I've ever made. Ever. Ever, ever. And for those of you who are like me, struggling, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I survived. And it's not always easy. Hell, like, some nights I wake up from nightmares. Most nights, frankly. Yeah, it's not easy. It will for some people it will never get easier, but it doesn't get easier, but I've gotten stronger. And you can too. You can always become better, stronger. Because you're worth it. Your story is worth it. It's worth to keep trying, to keep reaching out. It always will be. And that's it. That's the story. It may not be the most dramatic thing, it may not be the most complete because it's still ongoing, but it's my story. And while this isn't definitely my most edited video, I felt as though I should get it out to help those of you who are like me, who are struggling. For a few closing thoughts of mine, I'm well aware that some people who don't like me for whatever horseshit reason will use this to try and get under my skin. That's a risk I'm willing to take. more than a risk I'm willing to take, frankly. Like, if this video helps anyone feel seen, feel empowered, if this helps anyone feel connected, uplifted, then it's worth some morons on the internet trying to get under my skin using it. And I don't know where I'm going to take this channel next. Space Station's not really going to go anywhere, but I'd like to think that you guys watch me for me. And if you don't watch me for me, that's okay too. If you just like funny Space Station, that's completely all right. This isn't going to become some, you know, mental health channel because I'm not qualified to give mental help. To give mental help, I'm not exactly stable yet either. But yeah, thank you so very much for watching. This has been a very difficult video to make. For once, not because of Premiere. I'll see you in the next video. I don't know what it will be yet, but I'll see you in the next one. Bye.